live.
Wonderful. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing, Richard Gamble?
I'm doing well, thank you. I've had one of those days, Roz, when you get up in the morning. I was doing a news review. There were no newspapers at the supermarket, and then I arrived at my office to find I was locked out. Other than that, it's gone
Oh,
swimmingly.
oh, bless you. Well, we're just thrilled that you're able to make this call.
Very
And
happy to be here.
yeah, and for those that don't know, you are the chief executive, is that correct?
Founder. That's the phrase.
Founder, is that
Founder,
the okay? Founder, leader. To me, you're a mighty man of God, and as one of our friends says, a white man with a lot of faith. So there we go. So you lead an organisation called the Eternal Wall of Answered Prayer. Quickly, tell us in a nutshell, what is that?
So we're building a national landmark on the outskirts of Birmingham. It's a giant Mobius strip, about 2.5 times the height of the Angel of the North. Mobius strip is like an infinity loop, and we are basically it's made up of 1,000,000 bricks, and every brick will represent an answered prayer. And for us, this is a way of us making hope visible to the nation. Very hard to get good positive stories into the press, but people will be able to come along. They'll be able to point their phone at any of the bricks in the structure. The phone is going to light up and it's going to tell them a story of when somebody prayed to Jesus and how Jesus answered. And what we want to do is give people the opportunity that whatever storm of life they're in, they can find a story that's similar and see how somebody journeyed with Jesus through that answer, whether it is an immediate answer, a delayed answer, or even an answer that none of us wanted to happen.
God does that, right?
A lot.
A lot, a lot. And I guess, in the position that you're in, you get to hear some amazing testimonies. That must be
Yeah,
a
I mean,
delight.
I know we've got one person in our organisation who we've changed her name, but her title used to be Head of Answered Prayer. But she has the great job of sifting through all these stories as they come in on a daily basis. That's a good gig, isn't it? That's a good job.
Yeah, it's an amazing job. That would certainly raise your faith. Well, what an interesting job to have. I mean, what was your job before this? Were you in construction? Because that's kind of what you're in now. But I mean, I don't know.
I am
What-
the most unpractical man you could ever meet, Roz. I have in my DIY life set fire to my bathroom and nearly chopped a tree into my house. So no, not
Okay.
construction. Um, Pretty wide and varied, but mainly in marketing. So I used to work for British Gas for a number of years. And then I was a marketing consultant. And then I set up my own software business in customer feedback.
Right.
And about how many years ago? 10, 12 years ago, God told me to give up the business and focus on other stuff. So that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow. So how does he, I mean, what did he just say? An audio voice run the business
Uh,
or how does it?
I, I got summoned by a wise sage in the church. He said, I want to speak to you. And I got there and I put my hand on the door handle. And as I did that, I felt the Holy Spirit just say to me, he's going to tell you to give up the business. And that's what he did in the meeting. And he said,
Okay.
son, you need to start working on this. I was like, okay. Um, and I phoned up my business partner and went, mate, I'm done. Let's
Wow.
work out how to get me out of the business as soon as possible.
Gosh, that's obedience for you.
Yeah, I think my wife and I have learned over the years to, when God says do it, and sort of our approach. I wouldn't enforce this on anybody else, but our approach is work out the detail later.
Okay.
Because
And
often for us, if we start thinking about the detail too much, we end up never doing it. So
right.
we just go for it and then pick up the pieces. And interestingly, over the decisions over the years, people have gone, "Well, that's brave," and I'm thinking, "That's not brave," but that's because I haven't thought about the detail. And about 6 months later, I'm like, "Oh my word, that was brave."
Brilliant. I think I mean, Peter comes to mind when Jesus says, come, and he jumps out of the boat, and then he starts thinking, flipping heck, how am I going to walk on this water? So, you've well got out of your boat, haven't you? After having a job where you've got income coming in, I guess.
Yeah.
What's the score? Are you living by faith now? How's it work?
Yeah. So we sort of had a lot of money from selling the software business. But 7 years ago, I felt God say I need to concentrate on Eternal Wall, and that money ran out. Didn't take too long for that money to run out, because you want to just invest it and get the thing moving. And then we've had a period of living by faith. 2019 was unbelievably tough. Mm-hmm. But what was really interesting as COVID sort of hit, just at that point, about a month in, an investor came forward and said he'd cover our running costs for me and all the staff for the next 3 years, which is amazing. I had this BBC reporter going, what's it going to be like now? COVID, nobody knows how much they're going to be earning each month. And I was like, yeah, well, I've been living that for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
So I've got some muscle memory there. I'll be okay.
Yeah, it's great. And I think, ministries like ours as well, we're a tiny little team. We live by faith as well. And it's just like God gives you what you need for that season. And you're like, we'd love more, because we'd love to do this now, but it's all in God's timing.
Yeah, and we had here's a great story. So we were at one weekend, and I was trying to get the planning permission over the line for Eternal Wall. And I said to my team, I cannot concentrate on the money. And then we got to the end of the month. I'm like, how are we doing? And they're like, yeah, we're in a bit of trouble. and we couldn't pay the wages. We couldn't pay the wages. And I said, well, what are we going to do? And they said, well, actually, we don't need the money until first thing Monday morning. So we've still got the weekend, which is a great level of faith, isn't it? Yeah. And so they said, well, they'll pray over the weekend. And over the weekend, a guy was cycling, and he just felt God speak to him and say, you need to give to Eternal Wall. And so he got off his bike, and he was about to transfer the money on his iPhone. And then he felt God say, but don't give the money until first thing Monday morning. So the money came in, and the money that he donated covered the staff wages, but we got it 5 minutes before we needed it. Incredible.
Wow. God does this, doesn't he? Abraham and his son comes to mind, going up the mountain, having to kill him. No, the goat's there. My gosh, the Lord, he challenges us, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? And we have to keep going, yes, God, we love you, we trust you, even though I can't understand it or see it. But that's the journey, that's the faith journey right there.
Yeah, I think that's the key, Roz, even though we can't see it. And my problem is, as somebody who's come from a marketing background, you sort of try and plan what you think all the steps are,
right?
And the danger is with that is that you're sort of planning out God moving. Right. And what I've learned over the last 7 years, we were, we sort of have this what we call the Costa moment. So that's like, we've had times in the past where we've sat down at Costa's and gone, nothing more I can do. Nothing more I can do. It's up to God. And so we sort of talk about that in the office now. Like, right, we've done all we can, Costa moment. Yeah. Leaving God the space to do what only God can do.
Yeah, amazing. Quickly, my own testimony was when I heard you speak at an event in Birmingham, and my heart was, I want to give to this. And I gave what was a lot of money for me. And then I put the money in the bucket, and it went by. And I sat with my sister, and she said, what have you just done? I was like, I don't know. What have I just done? And then literally, I don't know if it was that afternoon or the next day, the exact amount of money came into my account for Transform UK, the work that we do. And I think God sees our hearts, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And so, if you're listening to this already and you want to give, just give, because you can never give God. We've gone off piece a little bit. I don't mind. I love, seeing where the journey goes. But, one of the stories that I actually loved when I heard about it is when you went to America and 2 people confirmed this. Can you quickly tell us about that testimony?
Yeah. So we're at the stage where we were praying for land. And my wife and I were invited to go to a conference, and we went to the conference. We just rocked up. Nobody knew what we were doing. And this lady said, I've got a word from God for you. He's got some heavenly land for you. Which, when you go across the other side of the planet to hear God saying, I've got the land, is just phenomenal. And then we have a team of people praying for this project all the time. And one of them said, well, if God's got the land, why don't I just ask him where it is? Which I sort of laughed initially, but, sort of loved the simplicity of it. Or she was like, that would save us time. I'm like, yes, it would. So she just a few days later sent me a Google map with a circle on it going, this is the land. and what she didn't know was the person who owned that land a few days previous had emailed me and said he'd like to meet.
Wow.
So I was like, whoa, the antennas up there. Meet with this guy. At the end of the meeting, I'd had the vision for this 17 years ago. At the end of the meeting, I find out that 17 and a half years ago, God had spoken to him about building a national landmark about Jesus. So that was pretty incredible. But I didn't want to tell him where the land was because I didn't want to manipulate him. He said he's going to go and pray and find out whether to give us some land or not. He came back and he said, yeah, I've decided to give you some land. But he gave us another piece. And I was like, fantastic, we've got some land. The lady who brought the word was like, no, that's not the right land. I'm like, shut up. I'm happy with what we've got. We've got some land, Yeah. But it didn't work. Then he gave us another piece and it didn't work. And then he paid his architect to look at his whole portfolio of land across the Midlands. And of course, the architect came back with the piece that the woman had circled 2 years previously. Incredible story. And that for us has been one of the many, but amazing things that God has done, that when it's tough, that's like we dig in and go, wait a second, you can't make that up.
So this lady lives on the other side of the world. You went to a conference. She gave you a prophecy that you've got heavenly land coming, and then she actually told you where it was going to be.
No, a different lady then told us where the land was.
Okay, very good.
Amazing.
So that's all good. So God's hand is all on it. And I just wondered, Richard, bringing it back to the work that we do in, supporting Christians in the workplace. A lot of people don't like their job, working 9 to 5, wish they could be in Christian workplace ministry, and would love perhaps God to call them to do something like you're doing. I mean, do you find it better working you're paid full time in a Christian workplace ministry now, aren't you?
I think I'm not sure about that phrase, to be honest. I mean, the cliche is we're all in full-time ministry, right? Yeah. That's like the clever answer. I think there's a couple of things. Number one, I think if the church really believes that, we've got to start working to support people who are in full-time ministry in the workplace. Because those are the people that are connecting with people way better than Christian ministry. The problem with Christian ministry is you get sucked into a really small world.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that I really don't like about what I'm doing. So I have to do other things to make sure that I'm not in that world. But the other bit is, I think often full-time ministry can be seen as sort of like a sausage machine factory. It looks like this.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that's the case either. I mean, I just believe that I am extending what God had gave me and trained me in.
Right.
And so I'm using my marketing, I'm using my software, I'm using my negotiation skills, all of that to get us where we are. And the thing that's really excited me about this project is the way that it's brought people together who are in the workplace and are just thrilled to be able to use their skills. Okay. I've had a VR guy phone up and help me with VR. I've prayed for a planning person, spoke at the church, then it just happens to be a planning barrister in the thing. A construction, I mean, our construction project manager, where we don't have time, but it's an absolutely blinding story about how God connected us. And for me, that's really exciting because people are using their skills, to serve God's kingdom. And I don't think they're separate. And I think it's really okay, Father God, why am I in this office? Why am I doing this job? What am I learning here that you want me, what do you want me to do here? So, when I was at British Gas, I'm learning marketing skills, but I'm also learning how to share my faith in a real and proper way in a work context. There's loads of lessons, isn't there?
Yeah, really great. So what I'm hearing is that there's no sacred secular divide. You work for a company surrounded by people that don't know Jesus. Brilliant. Love God there. You work for Eternal Wall of Answered Prayer. Brilliant. Do your work well and love God there.
Yeah.
He's for you wherever you are, and use every opportunity to serve him and make him known to the people around you.
Yeah, and a really important point, Ros, and really sort of getting to how people can help us is that when people come to Eternal Wall, there's a million stories, and you'll be able to type in your app whatever the story, whatever storm of life or whatever situation you're in. It's really, really important to me that we are covering all aspects of life as much as you possibly can. I don't want somebody who's an accountant to type in accountancy and then find no stories. Because what we then communicating, God's not really interested in your world.
So good. Yeah.
And so we're asking, people in finance, people in construction, engineers, architects, administrators, conference organizers, whatever it is, share your story with us, because you're then going to be able to point somebody in the same world as you to the God who answers. That's the power of what we're doing.
Yeah. So listen, honestly, guys, watching this video, if you have got an answered prayer of God working in your workplace, working through you, through your team, I don't know, perhaps you've been in a terrible business meeting, you leave the meeting, go to the loo, pray, God help me, go back in, and he gives you the answers. Write that prayer up, give it into the Eternal Wall of Answered Prayer, and let other people be encouraged by it, whether you're a nurse, a stenographer, radiographer, whether you work for Facebook, in IT, in Salesforce, I don't know, wherever you are, whether you're an administrator working for a flooring company, write up your prayers and send them in so that we can be a real blessing. Whether you work for the BBC, Advanti Media, we need you. If you're a veterinary nurse, come on now. If you're a cleaner, man, we need cleaners. If you work for a refuge company, man, what would we do without people keeping our streets clean? God bless you guys. We love what you do. So bring your stories in. I think that's a massive action point, that how we can help Richard and the team at Eternal Wall of Answered Prayer. Email your stories in, and there'll be a link at the end of this for where you can go. Well, Richard, how far down the road are you in building this wall? And
17-year journey.
Right.
Lots more grey hairs than I had when I started. But we're very, very close. We had a miraculous intervention in our planning. So we got planning last year. We've had provision to build our access road. So that is happening imminently. And we intend to cut the ground if we can raise the finance. We're very close to doing that. But we need more money. I've got to be blunt. I need help with the money. But we hope to cut the ground in March next year, and then we will get this thing built by the end of 23.
Wow.
And this is big. This is a global event.
Right.
I mean, it's going to proclaim to the nation that he's alive, he listens, and he answers prayer. And we've just shared some stories today that has lifted everybody's faith. Imagine if we can share 1 million of those stories to our nation over generations. I mean, it's going to have a very, very, very big impact. And that's why we need the church to be on it. And we need everyone in their own little areas to do their bit. I can't share what God has done in refuge. I need the refuge person to do it for me, please.
That's right.
And I cannot comprehend a God who's not interested in that area as much as he is interested in banking, as much as he is interested in accountancy. He's passionate about every single area, and we've got to show people so that we can point them to Jesus.
So good. I just want to pick up on two things. So if people are sending in their prayers of answered prayers, to say if you're part of one of our Christian workplace groups or professional groups, so if you're a paramedic and you're part of the Christian Ambulance Association, make sure you say that, because I think on these bricks, Richard, you were saying there would be, find out more, click through, and it would go to those.
Yeah, because that for me, when people come and they'll be coming for different reasons. When they come to Eternal Wall, it's a part of their journey, and we need to connect them on. So if somebody is, let's say, typing army, and they started to look at stories of like, is God, what's God done in the army then? And they start to read through the answered prayers. If they click the find out more, it'll link them to the Christian Military Association.
Yeah, the Defence Christian Network. Yeah,
we want to connect them with Christians who can relate to them in their world and go, you're not on your own. We can stand with you and we can help you. So it becomes not only this terrific landmark that makes a big impact, but it becomes a hub for us to connect people to stand with each other in their faith.
Amen. And so so again, we're just going to shout out action points. Please write in your answered prayers, send them to us, send them to Richard, we'll get them on the wall. The second thing, of course, is the finance. You've mentioned it, and what's an easy way that we can help?
The easiest way right now is to go to crowdfunder.co.uk/Eternal Wall. Great. And we need donations. We need to raise, I'm in the joyful faith step of, I need to raise £700,000 in 11 days. We've raised, I think we're on about 320 at the moment. But again, the importance is not the amount. It's just the donation. I know this sounds a little bit, but I do genuinely mean it. We got a donation today, just a few pounds. And I was like, yes, get in. And the reason for that is because that person, whoever she is now going to be part of the journey. And it's such a faith journey to get this built. Everyone who's getting on board, their faith is strengthening, because we've got so many stories. And so I'm asking all the people watching, don't worry about the amount. Just be part of this and be able to tell your family the story and go, hey, I was there at the beginning of this. And this is what I saw. This is what I saw. You've seen some of it, Roz. We were there when I was like crying on stage going, I do not know how I'm going to do this. But we raised the money to do the planning that nobody believed we'd get. And I'll be honest with you, when I first stood in that planning committee, if I'd have taken a vote there, we were 14-0 down.
Right.
And we had this God incident, again, a long story. I don't have the time to tell you, but God turned the whole meeting and we ended up getting the vote 13-0.
Amen. Wow. Come on now.
So we want people to be part of this movement. What's really, sorry, I get excited, but I've just had an email from a farmer saying he's got some spare eggs and he's selling the eggs and donating it to Eternal Wall. I've had people collecting copper jars and just emptying their, it's like we all do whatever we can with our skills. We've had volunteers going, do you know what? I'm a planning barrister. Can I give you my time for free? All these things are incredible because at the end, not at the end because it's sort of the beginning, but on the opening day, how powerful is it going to be to our nation to say, here are hundreds of thousands of people who've shared their story. Here are tens of thousands who've donated. And here is, 1,000 of people who've used their skills and their abilities to create this to the glory of the God who answers.
So good. I'm so excited. Honestly, I could talk to you all day long. We've got 5 minutes left. So, is there
I'm sorry.
anything else that you would like to share? So, this is, if you're watching this, hopefully in your Christian workplace group, or if you're in your professional sector group, thank you for watching. And please do click on the links, send your story in. If you can give part of this, and also pray. Like, one of my things, I was chatting to my husband, like, will it get vandalized? How are you going to cope with that? So I think there's journeys along the way. I know that, Richard, you probably have already thought of that, but I think in 6 months' time, it'd be great to have you back, hear what's happened, the next steps. And, I'm sure that we'd be needing to give again, pray again, see how the testimonies are coming in.
Yeah.
I've just thought prisons. If you're working in a prison officer, you're cleaning in prisons, you're an administration staff in prisons, we need your stories too.
And
Please bring them in. That just popped to mind as we're talking. Any last words from you, Richard?
yeah, I think in terms of the stories that you share, they don't all have to be like what I would call the Hollywood moments. Peace. How many times do we pray for peace in a meeting? Or get to our desks in the morning and just pray, Father, please help me get through today. And then we forget about them. And I just really, my prayer for everyone watching, I really hope that as you just take some time and go, oh, has God ever answered a prayer in my work? I just pray that God would just remind you. And then I always say, God is not just showing his ability, demonstrating his ability when he answers. He's also declaring his intention.
Amen.
And so if he's declared his intention to you in your workplace, that should tell you something as well.
Well, brilliant. It's been great to be in touch. Great
Thank
to
you.
hear the testimonies. And we look forward to having more workplace testimonies coming in. We love what you're doing, Richard. A white man of faith, as one of our friends would say. And God bless you and your whole team.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
also
very much.
your
Thank
wife.
you for your support. Yeah, she's amazing.
All right.